Are we entering a post-capitalist era? Looking at the business headlines, you wouldn't think so. But Karim Dahali, former global head of equity trading at Deutsche Bank, believes that is exactly what we're doing. Karim joins me now. So Karim, a post-capitalist era. So should we all don matching green suits and give up our ambitions to be the next Donald Trump?
Maybe, but look, I think the information revolution that probably kicked off in about 1995 has more profound implications for our society than any of us really appreciate. The information revolution did really three things for us. It provided all of us access to information, it's connected us all through social networks, and it's enabled us to collaborate in ways in which we couldn't collaborate before, either economically or socially. All of the institutions that exist in society today, whether it's the church, parliament, government, the company, universities, almost any form of social organization that we have today, all of these institutions, some of them are centuries old, thousands of years old, they were all built in a time when information was scarce. And we needed central organizations to disseminate information to us as individuals. Nowadays, this is something that we all take for granted. Information is freely available. And so we don't need those institutions to play the same role anymore. In a sense, they're all irrelevant to the world in which we live today because the world's moved on so much.
Well, you've said that every organisation will have to demonstrate a social purpose at its core in the future, but isn't this just telling people what they want to hear? Because obviously it's very fashionable now to be ethical and all those sort of things, but at the end of the day, can you still make a profit that way?
Companies in particular have always paid lip service, and maybe a little bit more than that, if I'm being charitable, have paid lip service to corporate social responsibility. I think companies have felt that they need to be seen to be doing something with a strong social purpose. So that's always been part of our business DNA in a sense. I think what I see now happening is that we're going one step further. When you look at some of the problems that we've had in the corporate sector, whether it's oil companies or car companies or people polluting, I think our values as a society have changed. We're a lot more aware today of the impact of companies. And I think our values are changing to a point where what we're saying is that it's no longer sufficient for a company to conduct CSR as part of its business. What we really expect as consumers, and I think particularly the millennials feel this way, is that we expect every company to have its social purpose right at its core, not as an afterthought. So whether it's some of the famous mission statements, our job is to connect people, or whether it's to make information available to everyone, those are very strong social purposes. And I think the technology companies in particular, which tend to have these more advanced social purposes, these are the ones that have got the strongest trust and the strongest recognition in the world today.
But just to play devil's advocate, doesn't this sound a bit idealistic? Because a lot of business people start a company to make money, and then it is usually an afterthought if they can do CSR. Do you think it's realistic to think that they're going to start a company the other way around?
If your business is about consumers at the end of the day, and consumers are telling you that they value social purpose, then the best way to make money, in a sense, is to have a strong social purpose. So I don't think it's something that any company is going to be able to ignore.
So for a company that has a very traditional makeup and it hasn't got a social value at its core, but it wants to evolve, what do you recommend it doing?
If you want to be in business for the long term, you've got to adapt to what your clients are feeling and thinking, and the impact that you want to make on your client base. There was a time when brand and reputation is what you created by how much money you spent. I think these days with social media, brand and reputation is what is imposed on you by your consumers. And so I think it's really important for large organizations to create a positive feeling amongst their broader consumer base.
Well, doesn't this get to the sort of heart of the problems with the financial sector, if you like, because there's obviously the banking industry that caters to everybody, and yes, of course, the consumers need to be happy, but there's also the investment side of banking which caters to the 1% and shareholders, and I don't think they really care about sort of social responsibility to some extent. They more care about profits. So, what's the incentive for them to have a social purpose?
The fines that have been imposed on the banking sector, I think add up in the last few years to about $250 billion. That's a huge amount of money. That's a huge amount of capital that could have been redistributed to shareholders. If I was still a shareholder of many financial institutions, I would want them to be sure that they were behaving in the most ethical way and avoiding all of these massive fines so that they could be more profitable.